Uss Zeal, Am-131, was an Auk-class minesweeper that served in both World War II and during the Korean War. As a steel-hulled fleet minesweeper, she was assigned to support the fleet by removing enemy mines whose purpose was to impede the path of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Zeal was the first ship to be so named by the U.S. Navy and was laid down on January 12, 1942 by the Gulf Shipbuilding Company at Chickasaw, Alabama, launched on September 15, 1942, sponsored by Mrs. John M. Hughes, and commissioned on July 9, 1943, Lieutenant Commander H. N. Jones, USNR, in command. After a visit to New Orleans, Louisiana, for deperming, Zeal got underway late in July for shakedown training en route to Norfolk, Virginia. During that cruise, she conducted type training out of Key West, Florida. Between 9 and August 30, post-shakedown availability at the Norfolk Navy Yard occupied her time. On September 3, she received orders to proceed via Guantanamo Bay to the Panama Canal. Zeal arrived in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba on September 8, and after loading supplies, got underway the following day for the Panama Canal Zone. She reached Coco Solo on September 12 and operated from there for the next month. On October 12, she departed the Pacific terminus of the canal, bound for the southwestern Pacific. En route, the minesweeper made stops at the Galapagos Islands, Morabara, and Tutuila. At Suva and the Fiji Islands, she received orders detaching her from her unit to serve as escort for the tanker SS Pacific Sun on a voyage from Suva to the New Hebrides Islands. She arrived at Espiritu Santo on November 2 and, 3 days later, departed on another convoy escort mission. That mission set the pattern for her first 11 months in the Western Pacific. Zeal escorted convoys between the islands of the southwestern Pacific, which by the time were becoming increasingly more of a rear area. She also conducted anti-submarine patrols. For the most part, the Solomon Islands, the New Hebrides Islands, Fiji Islands, and the Marshall Islands constituted her zone of operations. In August 1944, however, Zeal began training for her first amphibious operation. Operating from Tulagi in Florida Island, she practiced minesweeping maneuvers, drilled at gunnery, and participated in rehearsal landings. On September 8, she got underway with the other units of Mine Division 14 for the Palau Islands. She arrived off Angar in the Palaus on the morning of September 15 and spent the next 2 days sweeping the approaches to the invasion beaches. The sweeps of Angar, however, netted her no mines. On September 17, she moved north to coastal roads and began screening the fleet anchorage located there against submarine attack. Soon thereafter, Zeal received orders to proceed to Ulithi Atoll. She arrived there on September 21 and began running sweeps of the lagoon. Here, Zeal finally succeeded in fulfilling the mission for which she had originally been built, sweeping 8 mines during the anchorage clearing operation. She remained at Ulithi until September 25, at which time she departed the atoll in company with a convoy of LSTs bound for Hollandia, New Guinea, where she made a brief stop on September 29. From there, the ship continued on to Finschhafen and thence to Seadler Harbor on Manus Island, where she arrived on October 2. Zeal remained at Manus for 8 days. On October 10, she got underway with a convoy of minecraft, bound for Leyte Gulf. During the first few days of the transit, weather caused no problems, but, during the latter part, it steadily worsened. By the time Zeal arrived in Leyte Gulf, a storm approaching typhoon proportions had worked itself up. On October 17, the minesweeper began the pre-invasion sweep of the Leyte assault beaches on schedule. The storm, however, reached the typhoon stage at that point and forced her to retire from the area. The typhoon abated that evening, and, on the morning of October 18, Zeal returned to resume her sweep. That day brought the warship her first contact with the Japanese. After she had cut a few moored mines, a Valdai bomber flew over and dropped 2 bombs which missed nearby velocity by about 200 yards. The Japanese plane made its attack and retired before any gun crews could man their battle stations. Over the next few days, Zeal sighted several enemy planes, but the attack on the 18th remained her only close contact with the enemy until after she completed her minesweeping chores on October 23 and moved farther into the Gulf near Dulag to join the fire support group there. During her stay in the Gulf, Zeal missed the battle for Leyte Gulf but participated in some engagements with enemy land-based aircraft. One particularly intense air attack came on October 25 when Japanese planes were attacking the ships from almost every angle. A twin-engine Betty bomber flew up the starboard side of the Zeal and drew the combined fire of her 3-inch and Oerlikon 20mm cannon 20mm batteries. A few seconds later, that intruder burst into flames and splashed into the sea. Zeal escaped the air raids with little or no damage, and her crew suffered only one casualty. On October 28, she stood out of Leyte Gulf on her way back to Manus. The minesweeper entered Seattle Harbor on November 5. 9 days later, Zeal began the first leg of a voyage back to the United States. Steaming via Pearl Harbor, she arrived in Portland, Oregon, on December 4. She was overhauled there at the Albina shipyards during December and the first 2 months of 1945. She completed repairs and departed Portland on March 4, bound for refresher and minesweeping training along the coast of California. That employment occupied her for about a month. On April 2, 1945, she departed the U.S. West Coast to return to the war in the Western Pacific. After stops at Pearl Harbor and at Eniwetok Atoll, the minesweeper arrived at Caramoreto in the Ryukyus on May 21 to join in the last campaign of World War II, the 7-week-old assault on Okinawa. During her tour of duty at Okinawa, Zeal served on the radar picket stations situated around the island and at some distance from which to provide early warning of air attack from enemy bases on Kyushu and Formosa, now called Taiwan. Though she witnessed a number of kamikaze and conventional air attacks on other ships, she suffered only one such scrape herself. On the night of May 27, a Japanese float plane started a run on her, but her anti-aircraft batteries quickly discouraged him. Zeal remained at Okinawa until the beginning of July, at which time she embarked upon some large-scale minesweeping operations. The first, designated Operation Juno, was conducted in a 60-mile rectangle in the East China Sea. She returned to Okinawa late in July to conduct an availability in preparation for a similar operation, codenamed Skagway. On August 15, while she was still undergoing repairs, Japan capitulated. A week later, she departed Okinawa on her way to the Skagway area, but the mission was postponed because of the more pressing need of sweeping Japanese home waters for the occupation forces. By late August, she was on her way to northern Honshu, and on September 6, reported for duty at Aminato Naval Base. She swept mines at that location until October 19, at which time she received orders to head for Sasebo. She arrived in Sasebo on October 24 but departed 2 days later to participate in Operation Klondike, another major minesweep conducted in the East China Sea. Klondike lasted until November 8, on which date she returned to Sasebo to begin repairs. Zeal completed repairs on November 25 and departed Sasebo for another series of sweeps at various locations. These she conducted in the vicinity of Formosa and the Pescadores Islands, operating out of Kairin, Formosa. At the conclusion of that assignment, she spent the holidays at Shanghai, China. She departed Shanghai on January 3, 1946 and arrived in Sasebo on January 5. 10 days later, she began the first leg of her homeward voyage. After stops at Eniwetok and Pearl Harbor, she entered San Diego, California on February 9. Assigned to the San Diego Group, Pacific Reserve Fleet, Zeal was placed out of commission on June 4, 1946. She remained inactive until December 19, 1951 when she was recommissioned at San Diego. The minesweeper remained on the West Coast until May 19, 1952 when she got underway for the Western Pacific. After a stop at Pearl Harbor late in May, Zeal continued her voyage west and arrived in Sasebo on June 18. On the 27th, she departed Sasebo for Korean waters and minesweeping operations near Wonsan, Hungnam, and Chungjin. During those operations, she came under fire of enemy shore batteries several times but sustained no damage. In August, she participated in the rescue of 26 of crewmen of the Sarsi after the tug had hit a mine and sunk. She served in the Korean combat zone until the fall of 1952. She departed Sasebo on October 19 and, after stops at Midway and Oahu, arrived in Long Beach, California, on November 15. For more than 2 years, Zeal conducted operations, almost exclusively training evolutions, out of Long Beach, San Diego, and other West Coast ports. On January 21, 1955, Zeal departed Long Beach, California, and embarked upon another deployment with the U.S. 7th Fleet. En route she was redesignated Am-131. She reached Sasebo, Japan, on February 15 and, for the next 6 months, conducted operations off the western coast of Korea as well as in the Sea of Japan. While in the Far East, the Zeal made port calls at Nagasaki, Moji, and Kobe, Japan, as well as at Hong Kong, China, and at Kaohsiung, Formosa. While in Kaohsiung from July 29 to August 3, 1955, she participated in exercises with the Formosan Navy, with some of her crew members serving aboard the Formosan vessels as observers. Zeal departed Yokosuka, Japan on August 10, and after stops at Midway Island and at Pearl Harbor, territory of Hawaii, arrived in Long Beach, California, on September 5. Zeal conducted U.S. West Coast operations until she was decommissioned the following summer on July 6, 1956. She remained with the Pacific Reserve Fleet for just over a decade. Her name was struck from the Navy list on December 1, 1966, and her stripped hull was sunk as a target on January 9, 1967. Zeal earned 4 battle stars during World War II, and an additional 4 battle stars for her post-war minesweeping service. During the Korean War, she earned 1 battle star. For her service with the Formosan Navy in August 1955, crew members were awarded the U.S.R.O.K Mutual Defense Commemorative Badge 1955 to 1979 and the Honor Medal for 823 bombardment.